following podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Remember, the first rule of gambling responsibly is to bet with your head and not over it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cousin Vito's Casino Podcast proudly presents your guide to enjoying gambling. And now, direct from the bar, your cousin and mine, Cousin Vito.
Whoa. Welcome, everybody, to Cousin Vito's Casino Podcast, your guide to enjoying gambling. I'm your host, Cousin Vito, and together, we're going to make luck happen at the casino. Thank you for checking out another 2021 episode, and I'd like to welcome back my man who has his pulse on the New England gambling scene, Robin from Anytime Gambling. Robin, it is great to have you back on the show.
Hey, it's great to be back, and we did it. You know, we're here again.
We made it. It is almost May, late April 2021. What a year it's been. And Robin, I'm excited today. I feel like I have a real blockbuster episode for you.
Well, are you anytime not excited? I mean, you're just energy personified anyways. That's why we're here.
Oh, yeah, and you know what? Anytime I push record and I know I'm going to talk about some gambling, talk about the casino, I get a little revved up. But today I'm a little extra excited. I have a great interview, Robin, with we don't have a name. We're going to call him Carl the Card Counter, a mysterious card counter who does an interview with me, Robin, and he talks about how he went from regular blackjack player to card counter, what he does, just the whole idea of, hey, I think I want to count cards or whatever you want to do. He goes from start to finish with us today.
Well, that sounds really interesting. I can't wait to hear it.
He has, and you know what's great too? He gives up some resources on if that's what you're into, go ahead, you could go research it, and that's how he got into it.
Well, it's all those stories, behind the scenes that are really lots of fun that we're all interested in. So I can't wait to hear all the trials and tribulations he went through.
And that's the fun part, though, is like, you're kind of like me. Like, we like the casino. I like going. I don't know if I have the nerve or the concentration or the will. There's many things. There's many reasons why I've never been a card counter. Let's put it that way. And just to live vicariously through somebody who does that, the adrenaline rush, it's just a different way to go to the casino. Because I show up, I'm like a big piggy bank. I'm their slot machine, where he's fighting a different battle than me and you fight.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, I don't know if it's laziness or not really having the desire to really delve into it that much. But card counting is not my bag either.
Well, it really takes a special type of personality in person because even for me, yeah, I'd like to score an advantage on the casino and win money, but I wouldn't want to get backed off from my favorite casino, Robin. I like going to the casino. I don't know, that would be like getting expelled from school or something, or getting thrown off the football team, really ruin my my time here. Yeah.
I mean, I really want my casino to like me, so I wouldn't want to try anything that would, really piss them off,
We're looking for friends. We're looking to make friends out there. But that isn't all, Robin. We have this great card counting interview, but we also have a couple trip reports. I went to Foxwoods. I stayed the night. I had a great time. We're going to talk about some gambling conditions. But, Robin, I follow you on the internet here on Twitter, and I saw that you had a nice stay at Encore, Boston Harbor.
Oh, yeah. My wife and I had a great time staying over for the first time up in Everett. So it was a great time. You want to hear about that?
I do want to. So here's what we're going to do today. Since we both got the dueling trip reports, maybe we'll jump into this card counter interview with Carl the Card Counter. Everyone could have a blast. Listen to that. And then after the interview, me and you, we do some quick dueling trip reports. We'll hear about Encore Boston Harbor. We'll hear about a little Foxwoods. And, we'll learn a little bit about card counting.
Hey, that sounds great. Let's do it.
All right, so here we go. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome on this show the mysterious Carl, the Card Counter. All right, I am here with a very special guest. Normally, I'd say, here's this guy's name, this is what he does, but this special guest wants to remain anonymous, so we're going to call him Carl, the Card Counter. Carl, it is great to have you on the show. I can't wait to pry into your little card counting brain there.
Oh, it's great to be here. I've had many adventures and a great time along the way.
I can only imagine. Now, as you know, I'm a casino. We talked a little bit before the show. I'm a casino enthusiast, and I play all the games. Roulette. I'll play any sort of stupid game where I don't have an advantage. But one game I don't play that much, and that's blackjack. And it's really a shame because even if you learn basic strategy blackjack, you could have a game at the casino that you have a fairly decent chance of, breaking even. We'll call it. But for someone like you, Carl, you're a card counter, so you sit there and you're trying to gain an advantage over the casino. Correct?
I am looking for the edge. I'm there to sit down and play positive rounds of blackjack.
Okay, so you if you walk out losing, you're really upset. Me, I walk out losing. I'm like, okay, I got the room. Well, we'll even it out here. You're walking out. You always want that bankroll to be positive.
Well, of course, you always want it to be positive, but you expect the swings that come with the game, especially when you're counting cards and you're pushing those max bets out there. Your edge might be only 1.5, 2%. But you still have to push out those max bets and be prepared to lose that max bet 48% of the time, hypothetically.
All right. Well, that's a good little teaser of where we're going here, because with card counting, there is no foolproof plan. So even as a card counter, you're biting your lip a lot of times sitting at the table. And before we get too far down the road here, I want to find out about you as a gambler. So for me, I've thought about card counting here and there. Oh, yeah, it'd be nice to gain an advantage, but it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of practice. Did you just become a card counter? Were you a casino enthusiast beforehand? How did you get to the point where you're going to the casino now on this mission to win?
Well, I was a casino enthusiast and still am today. I went to the casino for many years, and I can remember, this is years back, I downloaded an app on my iPhone that taught you how to count cards using the counting system high-low. So it's just +1, -1, so on and so forth. And I remember doing it back then. I never really took it seriously, but I remembered the very basic fundamentals of it. And then one time when I was at the casino and I had a very slow dealer, I decided to just try to keep count the best I could until I obviously couldn't, because it was an 8-deck shoe and I was probably about 1.5, 2 decks in before I lost count. But I tried to remember as much as I could and use that method. And sure enough, of course, wouldn't you know, I happen to win.
the foolproof science. So basically, it ended up happening kind of serendipitously for you, where you knew about card counting. You're like a lot of us. You're about card counting. Oh, yeah, you got to put a lot of work in. And you were at a table getting bored a little bit, and you said, you know what, let me try this little method I learned on this app of mine that you probably read a little bit about card counting too. And you had a little bit of a success. Whether or not the counting at the table that day got you the win or not, that really doesn't matter, because as a gambler, it was enough of a sample size to say, I think I want to at least try this again.
Yeah, it was enough for me to at least dip my toe in and start taking it a little more seriously and seeing where it could possibly go.
Now, so you had that night there, and obviously at that point you were probably going to the casino, having some cocktails, yucking it up, trying to win. You lose, it doesn't really matter. So you went home. Now, did you dive into, I got to learn how to do this, or was this something that you kind of toyed with, you danced with, you said, oh, I'll do a little, and then, or was it all of a sudden you said, this is my new thing I want to get into?
Well, to be honest with you, for the first couple months, I kind of toyed with it and danced with it and didn't take it as seriously as I should have. And the main reason for that was because I started off with a massive winning streak. I think I won the first 14 sessions that I sat down at. So I didn't take it too seriously. I just thought I had the golden key. I was going to print money anytime I wanted to,
And so 14 winning sessions, but that is a very good streak. So you're taking it easy, you're winning. So, I mean, you feel like you're doing something right. Now, was there a certain session or something that you got clobbered and you said, oh, I got to really, I'm playing with some poison here, possibly?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Eventually that happens. And it was actually on my first out-of-town trip. I got slammed, and I got slammed hard, and it's no wonder I did, because I wasn't a perfect player and I wasn't taking it as seriously as I should. And once I caught that first major downswing, that was probably about 2 months, 3 months later, I started saying, you know what, I really got to learn this and perfect this game before I start pushing out big money and really dedicating myself to something that's going to be a losing proposition.
Now, you started small. We don't have to get into the specifics of your bankroll, but as you're going on a 14-session winning streak, by the time you had that big loss, I'm assuming your bankroll started creeping up a little bit because your confidence was creeping up. Is that out of the question there?
Well, there was a lot of factors involved. A lot of that play was done at my local home casino. So that was a big factor involved too, as far as playing for comps originally, which I probably shouldn't have been at the time. But either way, you get a reality check when you take that first big downswing, and that's in the pocket, and that's also in your head too. The emotions are something that you don't plan on having to deal with these downswings, but you do have to deal with the emotions and take them seriously.
And so you're on an out-of-town trip, so this isn't even you lick your wounds, you go home, you look in the mirror, say, oh, that was a bad day. You're out of town here. Now, did you just get to the casino and it's the first night and you're ready to, live high on the hog, win all this money, you go back to your room, throw it on the bed? Like, how did that happen? Did you have this happen early and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm soul-searching now, looking at the fountain at the casino?
That's exactly how it happened. I began soul-searching because the first night I was there, my bankroll that I came with took about a 75% downswing, almost right off the bat. And that was when you're traveling with a bankroll, that's your bankroll you're traveling with. It's not like you can go run home, run to the bank, get money, So once that bankroll took that downswing, I played the rest of the time while I was there with a minimal bankroll, and I clawed a little bit of it back, and then I took another downswing right at the end, the very last day.
Well, your bankroll survived the trip at least. You weren't just sitting in the room watching TV.
That's true. Especially when you have the hotel booked for a couple of nights already, that's the worst feeling.
That really, card counter or not, that is one of the worst feelings. You go on that big casino trip, you're excited, you got everything packed up, you're checked in the room, you're like, oh yeah, time to have a good time. And then within 5 or 6 hours, you're like, okay, maybe I'm gonna go get a sandwich, for dinner tonight. I'm gonna go. We'll get one little thing at Starbucks. I'll eat. Maybe I'll get a free coffee at the craps table instead. So now after this trip, when you went home, did you make a conscious effort and say, you know what, I got to hit the books or whatever, hit the app, however you were studying? Or was it, you took a break and said, I'm going to take a breather and reevaluate everything? Or were you determined?
To be honest with you, I was determined. I was hungry at that moment. When you first start off in any endeavor, you're willing to eat shit a little bit and pay your dues. And that's what I did. I started paying my dues. I picked up the books. I started with Stanford Wong's Professional Blackjack, and I became a Blackjack Apprenticeship member.
Okay. Blackjack Apprenticeship. I believe we had them on the show many years ago.
Absolutely. Colin Jones. He's a great guy, and he's got a great system and a great network over there.
Okay, so that would also be your recommendation then, as you like the Blackjack Apprenticeship program. That when you wanted to take it seriously, you got involved in that, and that had what you were looking for.
Absolutely. It's totally worth the price, and the drills that they offer and the information that they offer, the forums, the different casino informations, it's very valuable to a card counter.
Okay, and so that does a lot of the homework for you, because we're going to get into a little bit of that, where it's like going to different casinos. You have a different outlook on what casinos are good or bad, especially when you're going in as a card counter, opposed to me, where I'm looking for a restaurant. I want a low craps table limit. When what you good for me might not be good for a card counter.
Yeah, I'm looking for that double deck game with good penetration. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, and we're going to get into that, actually. So you had your 14 wins, then you had a big loss. You go home, you're starting to, put your time in on the Blackjack Apprenticeship, you're practicing. So when you go back to the casino now, you're going in differently. You're going in like a businessman. You're like James Bond going in here. Are you getting cocktails at all, or are you just going in straight business now, straight to the blackjack table? I'm here to win.
Well, I'm going straight to the blackjack table here to win. However, I might get a beer just as part of my cover, so I look like I'm a drinker or a wild gambler,
Okay, yeah, and I have read that's part of it, is you're kind of like a secret agent in a way. So is there a little bit of adrenaline rush when you go in there, because you're really trying not to get, that's the main thing, you don't want to get caught, but how do you finagle it to you don't get caught? Like you have the drink as the cover. Are you like on the phone, or you pretending you're not counting, making conversation? What are some of your moves you do?
Oh, I'll do all sorts of moves, including let's say the count goes negative. Maybe I'll hop off the table for a second and check my phone and keep my eyes on the table to keep track of the count as the cards are coming out. But maybe I'll just kill a little time or kill a couple of hands while the count is negative, so I'm not paying that edge to them for the hands on negative counts that are being played. Or I might take an extended bathroom break if I need to on a negative count and wait for a fresh shuffle on a fresh shoe. That way I'm saving myself placing those bets on negative counts and losing whatever their edge is. Remember, I only want to play positive rounds of blackjack. So I got to minimize the negative rounds of blackjack as much as possible.
Yeah, that's true. So you sit down at the table, you're almost like, oh God, I don't even want to play this hand. Where most people, we get to the table, we're like, oh yeah, let's do another. I'm ready. This one will turn around. You sit down there, and it's not only about trying to hide the hands you want to play with bigger bets. You also have to try and hide these hands you want to avoid. You can't just sit there and say, nah, I'm good for a little bit. I'm just gonna sip on this beer. You have to make it say, all right, this guy's just a regular Joe Schmo at this blackjack table.
Yeah, I got to make them believe that I'm just a gambler, just another gambler. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just another gambler.
Now, we were talking about decks in a shoe here. Is there any sort of, table condition deck-wise that you're not going to play? Because I'm sure I'm in Connecticut here. Our local casinos, I believe we mostly have 8 decks here. But is there, if you go to a casino and it has 8 decks, are you like, nah, I don't want to count all that? Or can you manage that?
No, I've actually done very well on 8-deck games, as a matter of fact. It's just a matter of either the penetration. If it's an 8-deck game and they're cutting it 3 decks in, well, that's barely going to be a playable game because it's going to take a very long time to overcome the break-even streak on that, essentially.
Okay.
It might take hundreds of hours to break even on that and get positive if the penetration in the deck is that poor. Or there's obviously situations like 6-5 blackjack games you would never sit down on. I never want to waste my time on that.
I'm not even a card counter. I don't want to waste my time on the 6-5. I can only imagine from you. You must be like, oh my God, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, maybe if it's single deck, maybe. But even then, it probably isn't worth my time.
Now, penetration-wise, is there a way, like, how do you know? Because to me, as a novice, to me, it always seems random where the little, where the deck's being cut and where the card's going. Now, is there really, trends at different casino tables, different dealers? How do you, pick where you want to play?
Well, usually, preferably, wherever there's an 8-deck shoe or a 6-deck shoe, they usually have that little notch where they want the cut card to go that dealers will put it in. But I have played in casinos that don't have that notch. And if they don't have that notch, it's more likely that the dealer is going to use their own discretion. And if they're using their own discretion, you try to look for dealer trends that will give them a reason to place the cut card further back. Maybe they're a little bit more of a lazier dealer and they want to shuffle less often. You know what I mean?
Ooh, that's my type of deal. I'd be Mr. No, but tons of penetration, or however you'd put it. I have a little tiny sliver, so I don't have to deal all the cards again and shuffle them all.
Yeah, you'll have 5 cards behind the cut card, and I'll be cleaning up at your table.
Yeah, like, this guy's having a good. We're all having a good time. I'll be getting tipped too, probably, if I'm cutting the cards that thin for you.
Well, that's a tough thing, too, because even when you win big, you have big downswings and you have big upswings. So if you win big, the dealer's looking at you like, hey, where's a little bit of the tip money coming my way?
Yeah, and
you just took a 4-figure downswing the night before.
Yeah, so you have all sorts of different mathematical things going on, especially when you're on a longer trip to the casino where, you might have a good upswing, but that may or may not have counteracted a downswing you had earlier on a deck that maybe you thought you had an advantage and it just didn't play out that way.
Yeah, it doesn't play out a lot of times. You just got to know when your advantage is and then push out your max bets.
Now, do you like when you go in, are you scoping out the dealers, what's going on, or is it wherever's open, you sit at the table and then you figure out your conditions?
Well, I usually try to sit at tables that have less players on them. That way I can get dealt more rounds per hour and increase my EV, expected at value.
Okay, so you're looking for a faster paced game with the counting as opposed to somebody who's trying to hustle comps. You want a slower paced game usually so you get more table time and things are going by a little slower.
Well, when I first started counting, I really used to scope out the slower dealers so I can practice my game. But now I want the fastest dealers possible so that they can just pump out rounds per hour.
Okay, so I see that. So you start out... You like the slow dealer at first because you're training. You're a novice. You want to you don't want to mess your count up. But then once you got the countdown, you're like, yeah, blow it at me 100 miles an hour here because I need to get these hands in. The more hands I get in, the more the math will eventually work into my favor every hour.
Yeah, there's nothing better than being one-on-one with a dealer playing 2 hands, 1 hand at a time, and just firing them away 100 hands an hour,
Now, do you get when you're there alone with a dealer though? Does it become harder to count being, unsuspectingly when it's just you and the dealer? Are the dealers wise to it? I mean, obviously there's some dealers that'll tattle on you, but are there other dealers that don't pay attention? Are you more nervous about a pit boss? What's your, how do you handle being there alone where there's nothing really to distract anyone from watching you?
Well, I'm always keeping my eyes on the pit boss, on the floor manager, and seeing where their attention is being diverted to, what they're looking for when they come to my table, if they're keeping their eyes on me, especially if they hop on the phone and they make eye contact with you. That's usually not a good sign. And the dealer, it can really depend. Some dealers are cool and they want to help you out, actually, because they think they're working for tips and they're just dealing the game to begin with. Whatever you're doing, you're doing. But I have had dealers that have created trouble for me, too.
Oh, so it can go either way. You could have the dealer that's like, you know what? I'm here to deal the cards. That's the pit boss's job to worry about it. I don't know what this guy's doing. And then you have other dealers that are like, uh-oh, hang on, Mr. Pit Boss. This guy's over here. Carl, the card counter. For the most part,
I feel like they would rather mind their own business. In fact, I've got one good story where my first ever trespass was in Harrah's, Biloxi, Gulf Coast.
Okay.
And there was a dealer there that was playing on a double deck table for probably about 4.5, 5 hours. And then she saw me get trespassed. The next morning, I woke up and went to another casino. It turns out she was working there too. And she was kind of helping me along the way without having the pit boss come over because she knew what I was up to. Like when I cashed in, she didn't even have the pit boss check the amount or anything like that.
So that story went a different direction. I thought you were going to say, and then she worked at the other place and she told on me the second I walked in, but instead she saw you there and she's like, here's this guy. We'll see. Maybe he'll come play here. We'll get some tips going.
Absolutely. She was very helpful. It was good too. Right before I got on the airplane, it was perfect.
Oh, then that's probably one of the best wins, right? That is probably, other than when you get there and you have a big win, the big win before you leave always feels pretty good too.
Oh yeah, especially when it's just a quick hour sit down.
Now, one thing that a lot of people, and including myself, but most people, when you get into card counting, you realize there's these big swings in the bankroll. Now, we don't have to get into detailed numbers for you, but did you have a specific starting bankroll in mind? Is there a recommended bankroll for certain table limits? Did you have certain winning goals or losing limits? How do you do that as a card counter? Because, with a big variance, you're talking that could be thousands and thousands of dollars depending, the limit table that you're sitting at.
Yeah, it sure was. When I first started, I told myself that I was going to dedicate a $5,000 bankroll to this, and whatever happens, happens. Now, of course, I'm not made of money. It would hurt to take a $5,000 loss, but at the end of the day, it would be replenishable. It wouldn't be the end of my life. You know what I mean? So I started with a $5,000 bankroll. And obviously, I started off with a ridiculous lucky winning streak, even when I wasn't a perfect player. So that grew it to a very healthy amount to where I took my first downswing that gave me the reality check, and I was still positive. Now, if I took that big downswing right off the bat before I had those lucky wins, maybe I'd be feeling differently about it this day, But luckily, I did. So when I took my first major downswing after I had perfected my game, and I was a perfect player, and I took a huge spike in my upward variance, we'll say, I took a massive loss because it was right when I had increased my bet spread a little bit for my minimum bet up to my bet spread. And as soon as I did that increase, I had my first massive loss. And that is really where you ask yourself, are you cut out for this? Because...
when you're talking about your bet spread here, so you're saying, let's say you're at a $10 table. When you're starting out, what are you saying? Your max, maybe I'll go up to $50 when I'm really excited, or $100. What type of bet spread are we talking here?
Oh, do you mean once you're actually a perfect player and you're playing perfectly?
Yeah, or what you were going through at that time when you got to that healthy and then you took that big slam dunk.
Well, I was doing a spread of $15 minimums all the way up to $150 hands. So a 1 to 10 bet spread, or I would split to two hands of 15 to 100.
Okay.
And when I increased my bet spread, I started playing on a $25 minimum table and spreading up to one hand of 250. So a 1 to 10 bet spread.
Ooh, so and that's when you took the spanking and you were like, okay, I got to do a little soul searching here.
Exactly. As soon as I did the increase, when my bankroll had reached that level, that's when I took the big hit.
And so that must have been really discouraging because you put in all this time, all this effort. Now, like even as a person that just goes, you go play some craps or something, no advantage at all. Once you start playing at a little bit of a higher level, it hurts more when you lose because you say, oh my God, if I were at the $5 table, that would have been nothing. And now I'm at the $15 table where you're going from 15 to 25 and, at a max bet of 100 or 150 to a $250 max. That could be a big variance over the course of a whole shoe.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, that single session was my very first back off, too. So it was doubly ugly. As far as how it hurt.
Oh, wait, hang on. I might have to light a cigarette for this one. Okay. So now you go to this, you're at this casino session. You're feeling, pretty excited because your counting's paying off. Your starting bankroll's way into the green. Now you're going up. You're at higher limit tables, bigger bet spread. So you're sitting down. You're like, this could be, the moment we've all been waiting for. And instead, you take a big beat down, and then they backed you off. You took your beat down, and then they almost kicked you while you were down there.
Oh, it was ugly, too. It was a very unfriendly back off. I've had many back offs since, and even a few trespasses sprinkled in there. But this, by far, was my worst back off I've ever had. My very first one.
Oh, so the worst one was first, which is good. So what did they do? What did they have? The security come grab your arm? Like, how did they get you out of there?
Well, at first they started demanding my ID. They said they needed to check my age. And, I'm well above the age of 21 at this point. So I was like, all right, it's time to go. So I take my chips, I go to the cage. That was my first mistake. I shouldn't have went to the cage. I should have just left and taken my chips and come back at a later date to cash them. Or had someone cash them for me. But I went right to the cage, and within a moment, there was at least 7 people surrounding me in suits and security.
Oh, my God. 7 of them.
7 of them, yeah. And it was intense. It's not easy to stare 7 people in the eyes and say no repeatedly when they ask for your ID very aggressively,
And so wow, you got there. You're at the table like, all right, they're hip to me. I just took a beating. Now these guys are like they're on to me. Let me get out of here. Take the chips I have left, cash out, and you're thinking this is the path of least resistance. Let me get the hell out of here. Where really that ended up turning the heat up because they're like, it's more of an escape you're on now, as opposed to, I was just playing. I just got out of there. I didn't get a good feeling at the table. They're saying you're trying to flee with, losing money, I guess, but chips nonetheless.
Well, some floor managers, I swear, in my experiences, they really take it personally. It's like you're taking food off of their table. You're taking money out of their pocket, you would assume, the way they act. But sometimes they have a vendetta and they just want to turn the screws.
Now, how did this end for you? You obviously did you give the idea? Were you like, here, take what do you want from me? What can they really do to you?
The one thing I knew that everybody always says is never produce ID. You're not legally obligated to, so you do not have to produce it.
Oh.
So they would not let me cash out. So I said, all right, I have to leave then. They said, we're going to escort you out to your car. So they were escorting me out through the casino, and that's when one security guard says to me, what do you have in your pocket there? Now, I always carry a little knife on me because my grandfather always told me, a man always carries a knife on him for utility purposes or blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah, a little pocket knife.
A little pocket knife, yeah. And so I looked at him. I said, what do you mean? He goes, is that a weapon? I said, what? He goes, right there in your pocket. Is that a knife? I say, yeah. He goes, so it's a weapon. I looked him dead in the eye and said, sir, I would not say that. But he was really trying to get me caught up in something. So he was
trying to be like, he's got a knife.
Yeah, exactly. He was trying to get me caught up over my words or say something or do something stupid so that him and his buddies can tackle me in the parking garage.
Wow. And and you got in your car, and have you gone back to that casino since, or that was like, you know what? I think I'll avoid that place from now on.
I went back 4 months later.
And were they like, oh, it's the guy with the knife in his pocket, or were you just regular Joe Schmo in the crowd again?
I got 2.5 hours before the back off came.
Really?
Yeah.
And
yeah. Were
were you backed off because of what you were doing that day, or were they like, sir, we know who you are, just get out of here?
They a little bit of both, I think. They were much more polite about it, the gentleman who handled it this time, which is always great. I mean, I don't want to make their job hard for them, and I don't want them to make my job hard for me. Why can't we be gentlemen and shake hands and say it's time when it's time,
The little cat and mouse game.
Exactly. I mean, there's people that are cool, and there's people that are total assholes about it.
Now, is there something specifically that tends to get you, caught out where they're like, oh, this guy's the counter? Is it when you make the bets bigger, or, is there something specific? I can't even talk. Something specific in general that, when you've been backed off that you're like, I shouldn't have done that, or that kind of gave myself away.
Well, of course, the bet spread, when you push out the max bets and they watch you long enough, that's a red flag for anybody. But me specifically, the worst thing that gets me backed off early is the simple fact that I look like the stereotypical card counter. I am a white guy in my 30s. I wear glasses, and I just look like the exact person who would walk in, sit down, and start counting cards. And that's hurt my longevity in places, I've noticed.
Now, have you tried dressing a different part, like putting on like a crazy hat to look like, some sort of, hip hop kid or so, like baggy clothes? Like, have you tried to like cover yourself, or do you just go, this is me, this is what I wear, I'm going as myself?
I have definitely tried different wardrobe approaches, especially if I'm going to be returning to the same property on location for multiple days. Maybe one day I'll wear my hair down. I have longer hair. Maybe one day I'll wear it up. Maybe one day I'll wear a hat. Maybe one day I won't. I'll generally try to wear a hat just because it's harder for them to try to produce a photograph of me if my face is always covered with a brim. So that's a little tactic that's always worthwhile. But especially in COVID times, it's great to have a mask on to play with, because, you could literally mouth the count to yourself out loud or under your breath. Not necessarily out loud, but... Well,
with the plexiglass and everything, you probably could do it out loud. They might not
hear you.
Probably
could. In fact, there have been times where I have done it, where if you win a big hand and in excitement, you just say whatever the running count is right now. 4! Oops.
Like, wait, what was that, sir? Like, I can't hear you. I'd be like, don't worry about it. I sneezed under my mask. You don't want to come near me. So,
exactly.
So that's an interesting twist, though. So the COVID probably has been a boon for the counter in the sense that, well, there's probably two sides to it, because you are covered up. You have the hat. They can't see your eyes as well. You have the mask. They can't really make you out. But during the pandemic, was it harder because there was less people at the casino now? And that, now all of a sudden a guy playing there for big money is a little bit more of a rarity as opposed to, when everyone was hanging out at the casino.
Well, the pandemic has been very interesting for any card counter out there right now, simply because there's pros and cons to it. Like, simply, if you think about the mask, that's a very obvious pro, because it hides your identity much more. You can take more liberties, whatever you need to do. But there are some casinos that are checking IDs upon entry now. And like I said, you never want to produce ID. So that would be a con, obviously. Also, there's a bunch of unusual pros and cons that you might not think about, in terms of the pit boss is focusing 50% of his attention now on sanitizing these chips, which means he's watching the actual table play 50% less, because he's over here sanitizing chips in public while they put on the feel-good theater show. You know what I mean? It's
really what it is, too. So I was at the Pie Gout table. They were, like, scrubbing the big placard, like, with the pole that says Pie Gout Poker. It was like, who's touching this thing where they're getting COVID off the top of the Pie Gout Poker sign here? Or they're putting a sandwich up there or something later? So what are some of the cons, though, for you? So you have to check the IDs. The pit boss is paying less attention. Is there anything else you've been noticing during this COVID? We're starting to back off now, though. So soon we're going to see maybe the plexiglass is coming down. Maybe the masks are coming off soon, we're thinking.
Well, one big pro is that the plexiglass is up currently. So the people at the table are usually, instead of 6 players at the table, there's probably only 3, maybe 4 now. So with less players allowed at the table, that means that a card counter will get more rounds per hour and the game will be faster and more sped up. So that's beneficial for the card counter, and I hope that stays, actually. We'll see how much longer we got on that.
I've been enjoying that myself at the Pie Gout. We only get 4 at the table now. I got the plexiglass. I got multiple cocktail. We got the water, the coffee. I got the scotch all at the table with me. I should bring a book. I got all this room now. I just need like a little thing to put my feet up on.
I'm going to see you with an ottoman soon.
I wouldn't mind. I could use one sometimes. You play for so long. So you've had all this success here. Now, How does the variance work for someone that, you consider yourself an amateur, but so what does that mean when it goes to, how often do you go? Do you go to the same casino, like clockwork once a week? Do you try to sprinkle it? Oh, I'm going to go, like I'm from Connecticut here, so I go to Mohegan, Foxwoods, you go to Encore, Boston Harbor. Do you try to mix it up where you go, your times? Like, because for me, I just go whenever I can, but I'm not, trying to do anything special. How do you book your trips?
I try to go wherever and whenever I can. Unfortunately, the biggest mistake I made was burning my local shops a little too early on in my career. I was probably just under 200 hours or 180 hours, somewhere around there, of table play when my local shops, I got burned. My name got burned there and I wasn't able to go there anymore. So most of my play is done out of town now. And I do work a W-2 job and a normal 9 to 5. So it's pretty much only done on vacation. My hours of actual table time are limited at this point, which is why I don't consider myself semi-professional or professional. If I had endless options locally, oh yeah, I'd be doing this full time probably. But at the same time, I'm not ready to take the dive to live life on the road. It's a great part-time job. That's what I say.
Yeah, and that's what really turned me off when I was, not that I learned how to count ever, but as somebody, you read the stories, you listen to the interviews, you read books on it. It seems like the grind, the road grind, as a casino lover, the glamour and the glitz that you really have when you go for those trips on the weekends or you go for the one-nighter, it wears away if you're a card counter, day to day as your 9 to 5.
It certainly wears away. The luster is gone. It's all business when I walk into the casino, and it's not as much enjoyment as it used to be, but it's enjoyment on a different level. It's the game within the game that you're playing. I'm in the let me go down, not lose all my money. You're on a totally different level of when you get down to the table when you're going the trip. It's like Inception out there.
Yeah, and meanwhile, it's like I'm in like a Scooby-Doo caper over here trying to find where all my money went, checking all my pockets. Did I leave it in the machine? How many chips did I put in my pocket last time? Now, one thing that always scared me, this is probably the most important part why I never got into it as a card counter, is I like going to the casino for fun, so you're backed off at your local casinos. Can you still go and play? Do you have any desire to go play other games there, or are you just solely, all I want to do is, count cards at blackjack, and that's really my gambling, the only gambling I'm looking to do these days?
I can still play. I just got to make sure that I stay under the radar and don't let anyone know that Carl is in the house for any reason whatsoever.
So if you were to go to your local casino and you weren't even playing blackjack, you were playing something else, you think they might be able to still be like, oh, it's Carl the card counter. We don't even want him shooting our dice here.
No, they wouldn't know. But if I sat down and touched felt, they would probably look into me.
Okay, all right. So you still got to be stealthy. Your casino trips are a little bit different. You could go for dinner and look, some slot machines, nice and easy, but when you're going to go sit down at the blackjack table locally, you got to go in like a secret agent to try and play a little.
Oh, yeah. It probably wouldn't even be worth it, in fact, because my local joint is an Indian casino, and that tends to carry more risk.
Oh, yeah. Well, they'll never see you again. The Indian casino, right? They could do what they want, basically. I heard somebody told me a story. They got in trouble at the Indian casino. They had to go to the tribal court. They were like, it wasn't court. It was just basically like some guy telling you were guilty, and that was it. Sign the thing.
It's a kangaroo court.
Well, have you had to do that, though?
No, I would never. I would never even want to put myself in that position.
Now, so you've been back, and how many places have you been? Not if you mind, don't mind me asking, obviously. Have you been backed off a lot of places? Does it happen often? Every 10 times you go, are you backed off one casino, or is it just random?
It really depends on region, I would say, wherever you are in the country. I probably have a total of, I don't know, probably close to 24 back-offs and trespasses total, which is a lot. I mean, I know guys who have been counting cards the same amount of time as me, and they've only experienced one back-off. One guy, he was about 400 hours into his play, and he never got backed off, he was telling me. I couldn't believe it. I said, this guy's a golden goose.
You're getting beat up in the parking lot with a knife in your pocket on your first try.
Exactly. But this guy, he looks like he would be a wild and crazy gambler. He doesn't look like the stereotypical card counter,
And that might throw them off because when I play games that aren't blackjack where you can't get a counting advantage, there are people who bet wildly, who will be betting 25, then 250, then 100, then $5. There are people that bet like that. So if you look like the crazy gambler type, you could see how somebody be like, oh yeah, because they see all sorts of different cats running around the casino. If you sit at the table long enough, there's 100 different ways that people will bet the same game and different strategies.
Oh, absolutely. And the personalities that you see at the table after all the hours that I've spent in various casinos, I feel like I've seen it all with all these characters passing by.
Now, are there any casinos that you just feel like, you know what, this was the easiest place to count in the world? No one even seemed to give a damn what I was doing.
As a matter of fact, I just got back from a trip about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Let's say I was in Tampa, and there was a casino that I played there, and I was playing double deck for hours, and I wasn't getting any heat. I was keeping an eye on the pit boss. The pit boss was looking at me. We were talking. We were jaw-jacking, putting on the whole act, so on and so forth. And it just never came. I was sitting there for hours, fully prepared for that tap on the shoulder to come at any moment, and it just never came. And by the end of the trip, I ended up getting about 15 hours of play over the weekend.
Wow, and I'm assuming you were up.
Yeah, it was a winning trip. I paid for the whole trip in addition, too, so that was nice.
Now, that's probably the scariest part is there's no way to guarantee you're going to win, no matter how good you count, no matter what you do. Now, have there been any, and obviously we need the minutia of how the card counting works, but have there been any times where you were like, I'm sure that this shoe is in my favor here, and you've been unpleasantly surprised? Or have there been times in the opposite where suddenly you're like, I guess I'll up my bet here, and it turns out really well for you?
Oh, absolutely. When there's positive shoes and you push out those max bets, it goes ugly a lot of the time. It's just not the majority of the time, but it's close to the majority of the time. So you really got to internalize those emotions and just remember it's all part of the long run, and that you're doing this over the course of hundreds of hours. And whatever you do in the next 10 hours, 20 hours doesn't actually matter. It's the course of hundreds of hours of play that you're guaranteed to be a winning player if you're playing a good game and your game is perfect.
And being perfect's tough, I got to tell you, because I try to play games and just be okay at them. Even basic strategy blackjack, I got to reread and brush up before I go play. Do you practice all the time? Is it just something that you put your mind to it so much, you know it inside and out, you don't brush up at all anymore?
Oh, you definitely have to brush up every time you're going to play. Just on the basics, the fundamentals, just to get your mind a little juice in and flow in, just so you can sit down at the table and be ready and prepared, instead of just assuming that you won't be rusty, because you are putting real money on the line. The actual value cannot leave the thought process that you have.
Now, and that must be an interesting twist, too, because you're sitting there, you're putting this work and counting, and suddenly the shoe is in your favor. But as you were just saying, there, almost 50% of the time it doesn't go your way. A little bit more than 50% it does, but there's a good portion of the time when even the conditions are great that you still take the heat and take a kick in the ass. Now, how does your adrenaline rush? Like when you're sitting there and you have this shoe and you're like, okay, oh boy, this is going well. This is going really well. And then suddenly you're like, I gotta up my bet here big time. Now, you must be facing the same, adrenaline rush as a regular gambler, or even though you're, using your mind to get an advantage, you must get a little nervous when you say it's time to up these bets.
Well, it's all part of the game. So that's part of the emotional check that you have to keep yourself in. But I'd be lying to you if I said that when I didn't have my max bet out and, oh, look, it's time to split. Oh, look, it's time to double on both of those splits, that adrenaline rush doesn't happen internally, because it's definitely inside of you and you feel it. And you know that, wow, if you make this hand, it's probably going to make or break the session or the trip.
And it gets to that point when you have, like we were using the $25 example. So you have a $250 hand and suddenly you got to double down on it or split it. That's a big difference from when you're playing $25 hands. Even though a $25 hand could be unpalatable for somebody, splitting a $250 hand or doubling down, there must be a little nail biting sometimes.
I mean, if you got $250 on the table and then 30 seconds later you've got $12.50 on the table and you're making all the right plays, yeah, you get a little nervous at that point. Even though you have the edge, you get a little nervous.
But that's why you need to practice, and you can't make those little mistakes, because sometimes you're out there, you make a bad play, maybe that's what costs you. You don't have all your math correct.
Well, you know what, Vito? That's the sort of thing that you can practice. You can put in hundreds of hours of practice to become a perfect player, but you never actually know what it feels like until you're in the seat and you're at the table.
And you've been times where you're like, I'm a well-oiled machine here, and you're ready to rock and roll.
I'm stoic and emotionless most of the time.
Ooh, like the killer, the casino killer. So
I'm not afraid anymore.
now, as a card counter, is a place like Vegas more appealing to you, or Atlantic City, where you have a lot of different casinos you could go to on a trip? Or, like for instance, you went down, you had talked about your Louisiana trip. There's a few different casinos down there, but when you go on a trip, are you planning to say, you know what, I'm probably going to be jumping around a little bit, or do you say, I want to stay at this place and not get caught?
Oh, I love to go to locations that have multiple properties within driving distance, so you can switch up as much as possible, or maybe you can spend as much time here, and if you get backed off and they don't flyer you around town, you can just go across town, sometimes even across the street, and get in another 4 or 5 hours that day.
Now, have you ever experienced that where you were backed off one place and suddenly you're having problems in another place because they were in contact?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, when I got that trespass in Harrah's in Biloxi, they actually flyered me all around town. So I think there was about 11 or 12 casinos in that area there. And every time I sat down at one of them, it was within a half hour that I got backed off. Sometimes I would sit down and they wouldn't even let me sit down. As soon as I put the money, they would push the money back at me and said, "We can't take your play."
Wow. So they have a nice net. It could be with the town too, or who has a nice network of the fax comes in with your face on it.
Yeah, it's usually based on the region.
Now, are there any regions that you prefer to play in?
I'll tell you what, I just came back from Tampa. I will be returning there. You know what? Since I have started counting cards, I have not been to Vegas. And the Vegas approach is very different because all the pit bosses all around town in Vegas are very sharp. They can pick out card counters very quickly. So you got to spend a lot of time hitting a positive shoe here and then leaving. Whether you're up or down, you got to leave so they can't linger around you and analyze your play, so you can move on to the next place and just keep on pounding the pavement that way, jumping around. So a place like Vegas with a lot of different locations and a lot of smart pit bosses, you would have to take an approach that way to survive.
That's an interesting twist, because that's true. As a novice, I look at it and say, oh, you got all these different places you could go, but really you have the cream of the crop out in Vegas, and those guys have seen it all, a lot of them.
They've seen it all.
Where you go to a middle of nowhere
Vegas,
casino. Some pit boss may not know what the hell's going on. He just finished his training and he's like, all right, I'm just trying to make sure nobody's stealing anything.
Exactly. If you're in the middle of nowhere, you're probably going to have more longevity than you would in Atlantic City, per se.
Wow. Now, and you talk about tribal casinos. Are there any tribal ones that you've gone to? Because there's tribal casinos all over the place that have all different rules. Are there any that have favorable conditions, unfavorable conditions for you?
For the most part, table conditions vary from casino to casino. I wouldn't say it's dependent on Indian or tribal casinos or not, but sometimes you could find lucrative opportunities at tribal casinos with side bets, or an opportunity that if you were there and you kept your eyes open, you might see it and be able to analyze it and see whether or not it's profitable.
Ooh, do we have any nice little casino side bet stories here?
Yeah, actually, I did have a side bet that I was taking advantage of for quite a while, but eventually that well dried up when they eventually changed the rules and realized what was going on.
Okay, now, and you just played, you as a card counter, you're just playing regular old blackjack. Now, there's Spanish 21, there's different variations of blackjack. Are you just looking for that straight and narrow 3-2, as few decks as possible?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm looking for. I will play other games if there's an obvious advantage to be had, but still, you have to learn the strategy, perfect the strategy, and make sure you know what you're doing before you just start throwing black chips or purple chips on the table willy-nilly, thinking you know what you're doing on a 14-win lucky win streak. All
right, I'm going to ask you a question here, and you don't have to answer it. I mean, obviously you're Carl the card counter, so we don't know who you are. But let's say you're going on a trip down to Louisiana here. Or no, what was your most recent trip you went on? The Tampa.
Tampa.
So now that wasn't a gambling trip, but you went to Tampa. What type of bankroll are you bringing? Like, let's say you were going back to Tampa, and you're like, I'm going to Tampa, and I'm going to paint the town the color of Carl the card counter because I'm going to win all this money down here. At a blackjack table, if it's in your advantage, there's got to be times where you're kind of throwing what you're thinking about out the window because an opportunity presents itself.
Well, yeah, there's many times where there's a very positive shoe. You're pushing out max bets. Boom, you lose. Now you're reaching into your pocket and you're pulling out more money. And now we're doing this again because it's still a very positive shoe. The game hasn't changed, right? Boom, you lose again. Now you're reaching into your pocket. You're pulling out more dollar bills. See, this can go in a positive direction or a negative direction because sometimes people will start feeling sorry for you. Like, oh my God, this guy, he must have a problem, you know?
That's true. And, I've probably been next to it, not even realize it because sometimes I'm like, look at this poor sucker. What's he, nuts? And I'm sitting there with my minimum bet, sipping on my little whiskey or whatever, and he's there doing all sorts of math problems in his head I don't realize.
Yeah, he's doing math, and you're crying a tear for him, not realizing,
Yeah, look at this poor. Oh my God, he just lost another $250, and I'm sitting here in my Jack and Coke. I'm giving $1 to the waitress, feeling sorry for him.
But yeah, as far as the trip bankroll goes, it all depends on how many casinos are at the location you're going to, how long you plan on lasting at the options for casinos, and also, of course, how many days you're going to be there. So I only went down for a quick weekend. I didn't want to bring the whole house with me, but I brought, $5K to see what would happen. See if we could make some magic happen or see if we could just minimize losses,
And it seems like it went okay.
It went okay, yeah. It went well this time.
And that's the thing. You never know. It's a long game. It's not a short-term play, a card counter. It's a lifestyle, really. It's a casino lifestyle choice in a way.
In a way, yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. But yeah, it's all about the long game. Like you said, if you stick to your long game and you play a certain amount of hours, which you could always work out with software and get the exact number of hours based on the game and the game rules, which I encourage everybody to do, then as long as you can get to that long run and you're a perfect player, you would have to be a severe statistical outlier not to be profitable at that point.
Okay, all right. Now, I have one last question before I let you get out of here, Carl. And my question is, and this is more the fanciful fantasy of a non-card counter. Now, you go in and you're having your best run. What was your best night? Like, was there a night that you went up to your hotel room or you got in your car and you felt like you robbed the bank and you had a duffel bag full of money? Have there been nights like that? Is there one night you can remember that you said, this is what I did it for and this is why I keep going back to do it again?
There sure has been nights like that. And one of the most memorable ones was probably my biggest win in a single session that I've ever had, which happened kind of sort of toward the later beginning half of when I first started playing. And I ran upstairs and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to quit my job. I've got to do this full time. This is where it's at. The money I just made in sitting down for 6 hours, But that very big win was followed by my very biggest loss the very next session. So my chart had that perfect spike up and then that huge drop off immediately after. And to be honest with you, statistically speaking, that's expected variance right there.
So you didn't really get the ride high in the hog too much there. You went to your room, you celebrated, and before you even were done packing your clothes from the trip, you were like, okay, reality is back where if you're not careful, and even if you are careful, you're going to have big strikes and variance. You're going to have all sorts of things that you can't predict. You're in it for the long run, and hopefully, after a year, every year, you're up on the year is what you're looking at. You're not looking at sessions or trips. You want to be up on. Is that what you look at it by year, or do you keep records for yourself?
Oh, of course. You got to log your results and log them accurately. I like to keep notes of table conditions, rules on the game, even dealers' names that stood out to me, because if I return to that location, I want to look for Vicky who cuts the double deck half deck in,
Yeah. So you have a lot of science going on up in that hotel room. You have a little notebook, or you put it on your phone.
It's the game within the game, Vito.
Oh man, I mean, not that I'm ever going to be able to have the discipline to do that because I love a nice cocktail and I hate paying attention to things. Maybe it's an ADD thing, but I do envy you, and I've always wanted to, at least I've always thought about myself doing it. I've never actually been able to pull it off.
Well, there's a lot of ups and downs, obviously, and figuratively. But it's all about keeping your emotions in check.
Well, before I let you go, that's some good advice, keeping the emotions in check. So for any aspiring card counters on there, you were talking about Blackjack Apprenticeship. Is that your go-to? Do you still go on there and practice with their training tools?
Absolutely. Their drills are great. And Colin Jones has really put together a great program over there, and I would recommend it to anybody aspiring to learn the right way.
All right. Well, thank you, Carl, the card counter. Normally, I'd share all your information with everybody, but we're trying to keep you under the radar here. But thank you for coming on the show. I had a good time hearing these stories here. And honestly, when we get off, maybe I want to hear some more of these stories. Maybe we'll have you back in some juicier details here, because I liked the first back off, and with over 24 of them, we must have some good stories still ready to be dug out there.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you want me back, Vito, just give me a ring. I'm here for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And, may all your shoes be favorable, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Positive gains, positive rounds of blackjack.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, that was Carl, the card counter. And Robin, I don't know about you. Listening to that over again, I feel like I sat in the interview and enjoyed it, but I learned a lot more the second time around.
Man, all those stories were just so incredible. I have no idea how you can live through so many different little things as a card counter. It was really quite eye-opening as far as I was concerned.
It's really a different casino lifestyle, one that I can't lead, but one that I do like hearing about and reading about. It's weird. You live vicariously through these guys sometimes. Yeah,
it's those stories. Everybody loves to hear about the gambler, the professional gambler, what they go through, and the tough times that they've had and how they've built a certain bankroll, and it's just really fascinating.
Well, and you know what I love, too, is it's like a little bit of James Bond, too, because you go in there, you dress up how you got to dress up. You don't want to be yourself. Like when I go, I want them to know, this is me. This is my average bet, all right, guys? Camera, you see me? You know what I mean? Where they're going in, it's more a James Bond style. You got to go in smooth, undetected, secret agent. So, I love hearing about it, and honestly, not that I'd ever do it, but if you wanted to, you know where to do it now.
Yeah, when we go in, it's more like, you ain't got nothing to worry about here, guys.
Yeah, check my win-loss statement.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, Robin, before we get out of here, though, I haven't been to Encore Boston Harbor yet. I feel like a poser, a phony, a fraud, a fake here. My casino podcast, I haven't been up to Boston Harbor. It's been a while. COVID slowed me down, obviously. Having the baby slowed me down. But I got to hear about Boston Harbor. Would you like to do a little trip report on Boston Harbor quick before we get out of here?
Yeah, let me just go over it a little bit. We had, it was my wife's and I.
Whoa, Robin, whoa, back up a minute. I got this great, I got my trip report drop I want to play for you. Do you want to give your trip report?
Oh, yeah, trip report.
Here we go.
Trip reports, yeah.
I paid hundreds of dollars for the mixer so I could push that button for you, Robin. I wanted to make sure I got it in there. So
okay.
you headed out to Boston Harbor with your lovely wife. That sounds like the beginning to a great night away to me.
Yep, it really was. We were offered a comped room. I have no idea why. I hadn't been back in 2 years with COVID. So we put together our anniversary on the same night. At the time, they were only open from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They only had the hotel open those nights. So we put a nice little anniversary trip together.
Ooh, and Boston Harbor. So I'm gonna interrogate you here if you don't mind. So check-in process. You go in, you get in the door. Now I'm assuming no valet. Still, you probably garaged and then you walked in for check-in.
Well, actually, the valet was open if you were staying in the hotel.
Very
otherwise,
nice. So you
valet.
valet.
You had to pay. Yes. Yeah.
All right, walk-in, valet. How was the check-in process? Was it streamlined? Did you feel safe checking in with the COVID floating around?
Yeah. Now, this was about a month ago now, so protocols were really pretty rigid still. But, I just got to say that Encore just does things right, and it's all about service. So when we checked in, it wasn't very quick, but they make you feel like they care, and they do. And when we checked in, they took care of us. Because it was our anniversary, they gave us a view looking over the bay on the 25th floor, and the view was just outstanding. It was just terrific.
Oh, beautiful. So check-in was great. Now, I'm assuming, knowing when, these rooms are going to be nice, but how were the rooms? Like, when you got in your room, you saw your view, were you, okay, pleasantly surprised, or were you taken back by the Encore property?
This property is incredible, and the rooms are the same to match. Now, our room wasn't a suite or anything; it was just your normal, hotel room. But normal hotel room in this place is is anywhere but normal.
It's not the Motel 6 connected to the casino here.
Yeah. It wasn't like you went out the door and there was the outdoors. With this place, listen, the bathroom was huge. It had 2 sinks. All the lights went off and on one touch. It had an understated floor light, so for those nightly bathroom breaks.
I like those lights. I like the floor lighting. Sometimes under like the nightstand area or by the bathroom.
Yep. And the room itself. I mean, they have the largest deluxe, or regular rooms in the city of Boston or the Boston area. The room was large enough to have not only a king bed, but a desk, a love seat, an ottoman, a table, 2 comfy chairs, and a 55-inch flat screen that was just amazing. And everything is controlled by an iPad. Honestly, it was just an experience. We came up and watched TV and just able to just sit back and watched Law and Order, and it was just a great place to hang out.
So it really, I mean, not that it's just the anniversary spot, but that's the perfect type of place for the anniversary, because even my wife's a good sport. She comes to the casino also, but to have that luxurious room, and the fact that the room, I know the room was nice because you wanted to go back and hang out and watch TV in this beautiful room and really enjoy the amenity itself of having the room, not just the normal flop house room at the casino.
Right. And we are going back. We're planning on going back because, unbelievably, both my wife and I received offers for slot play. We received another offer for a comp stay, and all better than what the properties that I normally play at was offered. It's just amazing, and we can't wait to get back there. And the gambling was pretty good too. For the first time in maybe 2 years, my wife won.
Oh boy,
she won, Vito. She won, and whatever she was playing, I didn't hear from her for almost 6 hours.
So you knew things were probably going right then, at least, because you didn't get the hey, what can we get out of here? I got to go to the ATM. You were like, we have the sound of silence. Somebody must be winning somewhere. One of these dings are for me.
Oh yeah, yep. And she ended up winning over $200, which is a first for quite a while for her. She played a long time. I played video poker, and I took a chance on playing Ultimate X, triple play, double bonus, and
how were the pay tables and like the video poker conditions for you there?
Not bad. I mean, the pay tables are still when you're playing below $1 and Ultimate X, they're still like 8.5, but sometimes some places really cheap out to 7.5. Well, that Win basically had decent playable pay tables. So I stayed the whole time. I played like 4.5 hours on a couple machines. It was great.
Wow. So did you have any luck on the video poker is the question?
Yes. That's where I had the most luck. At one point, I switched over to Pygow, and the table was a minimum of $50. So and I hit nothing. I mean, you know how many pushes normally are in Pygow poker. Well, I lost the first 5 out of 8 hands.
Oof.
And I said, okay, I'm bye-bye.
Where was that video poker machine I was at, actually?
And I went back and I won a little bit more and kind of so I ended up winning. I went home up about $400 or $500. So yeah, it was really good time. It's a nice casino. It's bright. I love the fact that the speakers are attached to all the columns. I mean, the system, the speaker system in that place is just top notch. I mean, it sounds like the audio is right next to you when you're listening to the music or whatever.
So you're jamming out, playing some video poker, And how was the beverage service in Massachusetts?
Not bad, but the thing is you have to have you have to be sitting down to be able to drink your beverage. If you stand up
COVID style.
Oh yeah. If you stand up at your slot machine, someone will come by and say, "I'm sorry, but with your drink in your hand, you really do need to sit down."
Wow.
It's crazy. I think it's
that is unique because in Foxwoods, I'm running around with vodka and crayons in the hand. I got all sorts. I got my water, and nobody stops you at all. They just want the mask up while you're moving.
Yep. But that Massachusetts tries to do the right thing. Sometimes they get stuck. They
try a little too hard.
Exactly. So just a couple little things like Dunkin' Donuts. Did you know that was the only Dunkin' Donuts in the country that is not accessible to children?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
A little trivia bit here.
Yeah. See, kids can't go on the casino floor, and the only way you can get to the Dunkin' Donuts is to go on the casino floor. So it's an adults only Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts after dark.
Yeah. Yep. Now, whatever the beverage is, you can't take it on the casino floor. So let's say you get a coffee, and now you're going to walk onto the casino floor. Well, we were
finish the whole coffee.
What's that?
You got to finish the whole coffee.
Coffee, yeah.
Wow. So that's a tough one.
Well, see, we were met by someone, a staff member, who gave us Dunkin' Donut bags to put the coffee in, so that we could now walk it over to whatever machine or wherever we were playing.
Because you can't walk with the beverage in your hand.
Right.
You got to disguise and put a bag, pretend it's a donut.
I mean, some things are just silly, really. I mean, really.
Oh, man. Oh, well at least it's not like that everywhere, because that would be tough. I feel like I got my iced coffee rocking. I show up in the morning with the iced coffee.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh, and bad news. Popeye's gone.
Really?
Yep, they sold them to somebody in the Middle East, and he's gone.
He's
so,
out of there. Well, he had a nice stay in Boston for a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. The buffet's gone, but rumor has it that when Massachusetts actually approves sports betting, that might be where they're going to be repurposing that area for that.
Ooh, that would make sense. That would make sense. And having a nice sports book, it seems like something they'd want to have there at Boston Harbor.
Yep. So I always say that it's the gem of New England. I mean, Foxwoods, Twin River, Mohegan Sun, they're large, big casinos, and they have lots of things going for them. But when you walk into Encore, it's like walking into Wynn, Encore, Macau.
You feel like you're on the Strip.
Class. Yes. Only not necessarily walking into the Flamingo.
Yeah, no, not like walking into like the Venetian or something, or walking the Bellagio lobby.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's beautiful. Everywhere outside the casino is just beautiful. It's classy, and the staff, great service. So I can't, I sound like I'm on the board of directors here, but I can't wait to get back.
Keep those free rooms coming, Robin.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got to tell you, just listening to that little trip report there, the rooms sound great. The gambling conditions sound good. And you wouldn't happen to know what slot your wife went on, not to sound like a little old lady gossiping, but was it a good slot there?
Well, I found a slot that my son, who goes to Twin River, has success on. I don't know who makes it. I think it's an AGS machine, and it has something to do with Little Devils or something. And
I know which one you're talking about. The little, I don't know what it's called. I don't know. Yeah. I walk by it all the time. That Little Devil. Yep.
Well, there were three of them in a carom, and she said that she kept playing one, and then she went to the next one and won, and then went next to the. And she just went around in circles a couple of times and just kept winning on these three machines. So
you can't beat that. And so you guys had a great trip, and she won a little bit. You played a lot. You guys enjoyed the room. We're talking 2 thumbs up then, Boston Harbor easy.
Absolutely. I recommend it for anybody who's even just going to stay for the fun of it, because we did have a I forgot to talk about Mystique.
Ooh, okay, we'll do a quick dining. I love the dining. I can't skip the dining. So you went to Mystique. What kind of cuisine were we looking at here?
Well, it's like a Asian fusion. very modern Asian fusion. And we went there for our anniversary dinner, and it did not disappoint, man. This place was awesome. We started off with edamame, a spicy edamame, and I had Singapore street noodles with seafood. I mean, everything was just top notch, including the service. Matter of fact, when I asked someone in the casino where Mystique was, they didn't just tell you how to get there. They just bring you to the place by themselves. I mean, this just service is throughout. But Mystique, and we called it Mystique because we like to watch all of the Las Vegas TV shows.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't see Delinda Deline, in there. So
you look though.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but great place to eat. Again, 2 thumbs up. Fabulous place.
Geez, I'm about to. When's me and my wife's anniversary? I have to copy your idea, Robin. I got to make sure she doesn't listen to this podcast till after we go though, because I haven't been there, and you know what? Now it's on the top of my list here. It was close to the top already. Now it's at the very top.
It's all about, like, if we didn't win, would I feel the same way? I got to say, yeah. The first time we went, we didn't win, but it's still a beautiful, classy, just beautiful place. So, it's even great to go and lose. So
that's the sign of a good casino, though. When you go, you get your room, and you don't mind losing because you have so much fun doing everything else.
That's right.
All right. Well, speaking of losing, you want to I'll do a quick. We'll do the quick second part of our trip report here. I went on a beautiful 2-night stay to Foxwoods with the wife, the baby, the mother. We're gonna jump right into it.
Trip reports. Yeah.
All right. Well, I got to push the button again, Robin. So I feel fulfilled from signing off.
I was going to remind you in case you forgot, so I was ready.
My finger was on the button the whole time, baby. So I'm going to go quickly here because this has been a long episode into a Foxwoods trip report. I had a 2-night stay. We went up. You know me. We're point multiplier guys, Robin. I'm sure maybe you were almost heading up there that day. I was up there for a tier credit multiplier at Foxwoods, trying to make the next tier status. Trying to get some lounge access for the summer. Little personal game I play with myself. So don't try this at home, kids. But we went on a nice trip. We got the adjoining rooms, Robin. So I talked about this before, but my mother gets the comp room. I get the comp room. We both play, so we get the comp rooms together, check in together, get them adjoining. So now me and Amanda get to go down to a nice dinner alone. My mom gets to have the 2 hotel rooms adjoining. The baby can run back and forth. He's walking around now, Robin. He's playing with the room safe. The kid's having a blast. And I wouldn't call it an anniversary trip, but it was one of our first trips in a long time together, where we got to go out, have a nice meal, and really relax like the good old days pre-COVID.
Yeah, you've been away for quite a while, so this you must have been pretty excited about everything there.
Oh yeah, I went wild. We went wild. We both went wild, but I went wild. We went down. We'll do a quick food review. We had a couple different restaurants. Went to Dave Burke. You know my love for Dave Burke. This is my first time going since during the pandemic for a nice knockdown drag out dinner. And Robin, it was worth every penny. I'm telling you, Dave Burke. I'm going to have a quick review about a bad meal I had at Foxwoods for the first time in a long time. But Dave Burke, 2 thumbs up. One sad thing to report: no tableside Caesar. Where they come, they toss the salad, they make it all in front of you, they're grating the cheese. No more. The tableside Caesar is gone. So they have a nice new prefix menu. So me and my wife each got the nice prefix. We got the scallops, beautiful, and the braised short rib. Awesome. I got to tell you, I might go back just for the braised short rib, Robin. And normally, me and my wife split everything. Next time I might be like, sorry, honey, I'm just getting the braised short rib.
David Burke's never disappoints as well. That's one of the best steakhouses in New England.
So gambling wise, though, I have a great pie guy story, but I played me and Amanda played some slots. We did all right, up and down, a bonus round here. Nothing really, at no point were we like high on the hog. It was always like the battle zone. And we did play some craps. Interesting caveat here. So I don't know how the conditions were at the craps table in Boston Harbor, but at Foxwoods they still got the plexiglass cubicles. They got all the all the song and dance we do here, and so me and Amanda we'll play together. I do all the betting, but normally she'll shoot the dice or whatever. No big deal. We just play in the same spot. So the table's comes to us. All right, put the bet down. So she starts shooting. She's next to me, in the cubicle, right? They stopped the game, Robin, and made her get out of my cubicle.
Wow.
They said, no, two people aren't on the cubicle. And I'm very cordial. And I was like, well, we are sharing a room together tonight. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, you did know her. You've seen her before, So
yeah, no, we weren't like two bumbling idiots who bumped into each other in the cubicle together and we're like, well, what's going on? And so, but I was very cordial. But they did make her. The cubicle next to me was open, but they did make her go to the cubicle next to me to shoot. So interesting. Hopefully, the plexiglass will be down soon. Tear this plexiglass down. That's what I'm waiting for. It'll happen. It's coming soon, Robin. We're getting there. And then we can slap 5 again. That's what I'm waiting for. I got my You're double vaxxed, right? We could go slap 5 if we want to somewhere else.
Absolutely. Yep.
One of these days. So craps conditions were, we ended up, I'm going to say roam around the casino, but you know me, the swing from the chandelier from room to room. We had some cocktails, had a great time, and here's my bad meal. And normally, I'm a positive guy, so I won't tell you when I have a bad experience usually. But I just wanted people to avoid getting this appetizer, Robin. I went to the normally great, the normally wonderful, one of my favorite restaurants at Foxwoods, the Cedar Steakhouse, Robin. Have you been to the Cedar lately?
One of the original steakhouses in New England casinos.
And you know what? I've had so many great meals there. I feel bad talking down about the Cedar food I had. And let me start with the positives. The bartender was great. The drinks were great. We had a good time. It was nothing to do with the people that were serving us at all. It was more to do with maybe the chef was sick and they had somebody else in the kitchen and the guy was the guy's first night or something. But we got it was supposed to be a seafood in a jar type of appetizer from the View 24. You know the View 24 at Foxwoods? It's that restaurant that's up on the 24th floor of the Pequot Tower.
Yes, unfortunately, I do know that, and I had a bad trip report, bad restaurant report on a Mother's Day when I brought my wife to up there 2 years ago. So it can be iffy. Go ahead.
Well, actually, now I'm a little curious, Robin. So what was it about the View 24? Because I'm on the menu now. This is a View 24 signature selection here. So this is not just some sort of whatever thing. This is a signature selection I had from the View 24. So what was negative? Was it the food? Was it the atmosphere? Because it seems like the 24th floor, we should all love going up there and having a cocktail.
Yeah, it was the first time that we had gone there. Very quickly, all I can say is that the service was not very good, and the place was cold as hell, and they just didn't feel like doing a little extra just to make us wanted there. And I thought the food was good, but you kind of have an expectation of a place like View 24. It shouldn't be really good. It should be great. So, and I'm getting the vibe that
it was pricey,
very
right?
Great. What's that?
It was pretty pricey, I believe. I've obviously been closed down now, but I've thought about wining and dining my lovely wife up there, and I'm like, I like my wife, but I don't know if I like her that much for the View 24 prices. Those prices were you were paying for the view. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So the View 24 signature appetizer, this is the king crab and shrimp jar. So tell me if this sounds okay to you. And the only reason I'm even complaining here is this was a $28 appetizer here, Robin. So this isn't like, I wasn't trying to skimp out and be like, let me get this, this little stupid thing. I was like, we'll get this beautiful king crab and shrimp jar. Butter poached Alaskan king crab and Gulf shrimp, fennel, oven-cured heirloom tomatoes, grain mustard, grilled country bread. And this was, this was like our, it was 11:30 at night probably. This was like our midnight snack, having a, glass of wine together, having a seemingly light appetizer,
Yeah, and it sounds terrific.
Robin, it seemed like something I would have made with getting frozen seafood and thrown in the microwave. Butter poached maybe, and then I don't know, there was some sort of squash or it was. I should have took more pictures. I'm a positive guy though, but let me tell you, for anyone going, I would avoid, if you're at the Cedar, avoid the shrimp and crab jar, the View signature selection. And that's my only gripe of the trip. I had to get it out, Robin. I've been keeping it bottled up inside, but I normally love everything.
I hope you're better now.
I feel a little bit better. But we had a great time. The bartender was great. We had a good time there. It was more, if I paid $8 for the appetizer and it stunk, I probably would have said that's what I deserved it. If I paid $18 for it and it stunk, I would have probably said, we won't get that again. But $28 for it and it stunk, a little too much for me to it was a little too much. And at the time, I think I might have even been up on the trip.
Yeah, that's just too much.
So that's all. That's basically my dining review. But I do want to get into a little with the few minutes we have left, Robin. I had a big Pai Gow fiasco.
Oh,
So we were talking about 4 times tier credits. So first of all, the table's open at noon. So I was figuring tier credit day. Let me get to the table early.
right.
Get to the table. Me and this other couple there were having a good time. We're talking about all sorts. They were talking about a slot pull they did at Foxwoods. I was kind of like, oh, what slot pull was it? Because we had the Gamepalooza there. Oh, some podcasts. So I was like, oh, maybe they were at Gamepalooza. And so we're getting ready to start. And I'm doing one of the bonus bets where you spin the wheel if you get like Pai Gow. You know what I mean? Like king high or below. I spin the little wheel for cash. So I go to do this, Robin. The screen freezes at the table. So they just open the table. They do this big 20-minute wipe down ritual. They're wiping every surface. They're disinfecting everything, disinfecting the placards as if I'm going to eat, you're going to eat a sandwich off it and this COVID spore is going to be sitting there for you when you touch it next time. They were wiped down every inch of this thing. And so we're sitting here and then it's like this thing's broken. So they're trying to reset it, Robin. This thing reboots like a Windows 95. Like, I don't know what type of computer system is in the Pai Gow bonus bet. They were like, oh, this is going to take a while. So the couple I was with, they scouted out there was another table open and that 2 spots opened up. It was full. Robin, they abandoned me. So then I'm alone at this table, right? So I'm saying, okay, they did clock me in at noon because we were sitting there waiting. They're like, all right, yeah, clock you in. We got to still disinfect everything 100 times. So we're getting to like, now it's 12:10, 12:15. They're rebooting this thing. So eventually they get this thing to reboot, right? So Robin, we go to sit down. The light stops working. You know how it has to light up?
Yeah.
There's a light issue on the reboot. So now they're like, you know what? We're just going to open a different table for you, because they felt bad for me. I was sitting there. It's like 12:20, whatever. And the order of operations, the light and the restart, it was all, that was like one problem altogether. So they say, we're going to open another table for you. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I go get my stuff, go sit at the other table. Robin, the disinfecting ritual begins. I was like, oh no, they're wiping the pole down. They're wiping the sign down. So they got to do the whole opening ritual for me. So I'm saying, okay, we finally are here. We're doing good, right? So I'm sitting alone. So it's like 12:25 now. So I start to play, but one thing they got to do, because they just opened this table, they didn't have all the right denomination. We need quarters at the Pai Gow table for a $25 table, which $25 limits during the day, $50 limits in the evenings on the Friday I went. So I had to they were like, can you take your $10 chips, go walk to that other table with the couple that abandoned me, right? The other side of the high limit, go walk over there, can buy in ask for $10 in quarters so they could do the swaps. Because I guess like to move the money that's counted at the table to the other money that's counted is some sort of transaction process. But if I go there and just give them the chips, I could walk the quarters back myself and then say, oh, can I trade these quarters for chips? And get the process, because they were like, this guy just wants to play, this poor guy. But I had cocktails. Let's put it that way. I had a cappuccino with whipped cream, Robin. I had a Fiji water and a scotch this whole time. So did you play any hand at all before all of this started? Or? I started playing before I had to get the quarters, because I started playing and then we realized that if anyone else comes to the table, there was only like, a handful of quarters left.
Yeah.
So like we were getting, there was one guy at the table and it's like, oh God. So I'm sitting there playing. What was that, Robin?
Were you being raided that entire time while they were cleaning and fixing and all that?
That's the positive of this story. So they checked me in. So I'm here. I'm playing. It was multiplayer day. I really didn't think I was going to make the next tier here. So, I'm sitting there. I'm like, this isn't happening. And I was playing. Got down to 12. I'm like, I have my bankroll. I'll play as long as I can. Worst case, I got at 6 p.m. I was going to go out to dinner. Or I got takeout that night for a man in the room. So I'm hanging, having a good time, Robin. I lasted till 6 p.m., but the table broke down again while I was there. So I'm playing, and we were talking, I probably had a good 30 to 40 minutes of not playing in my first hour, just getting rated because I was stuck there. I wanted to play. It was nothing I wasn't trying to do. But then the card shuffler was getting jammed, and they had some weird tool to blow air into it, like the cards must get stuck together or something, or get stuck inside of the mechanism. And it's like a little, for me now, it looks like Sonny's little snot thing, where you like the little ball with the little tubes. They're blowing the air, and the thing is stuck. I'm like, oh my God. So finally, I end up getting to play here after, and then I actually did get some fun because I was at the table alone, so I got to watch the gaming mechanic guy come down, the technician work on the other table, and they were telling him, well, this one's got a light problem, and they were taking him to all the tables, telling him all the problems, and he was like, oh God, he's like, well, I got to get approval to work on this because at the casino there's some things that a guy could come down and just work on, and other things they need to be alerted to. Oh, he's working with this mechanism. We need to check him in, approve it, so so no funny business happens with a mechanic, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Or a technician down there. Yeah. So I got to watch that aspect. So, Robin, I lasted all the way till 6 p.m., and I'm telling you, there was almost nobody. And this was a 4 times points day. Friday, there was almost nobody there. I played with the table. Maybe there was 1 or 2 people before 6 p.m., and finally, a couple of fun guys came down around 5, so of course I had to get going. They came down to play. So I left. I'm up, though. All right, I'm up. I'm even. Let's put it that way. So you check the tier credits when you get out of there to see, all right, what did I get rated at? And, Robin, I was within striking distance. I don't know if it was because I was varying my bets or what I was doing, but I was within striking distance, so I told my wife, I'm sorry, honey. I got to go back down to the battlefield after dinner to try and get this status upgrade.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Robin, I went back down, and so now we're talking, it's like 8:30, I'm going back down there. Now I think I'm in a race against the clock, so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, you know what? Let me go talk to, they have the little host station in the high limit. I'm like, let me go talk to them, because I know that the tier credit multiplayer starts at 6 a.m., but I didn't know if it ended at midnight, because the advertisement clearly says this day is the tier credit multiplier. It starts at 6 a.m. So I didn't know if it rolled over at midnight or it's 24 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. And, Robin, I have pleasant news. It's a 24-hour tier credit window at Foxwoods Casino.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize that, because I think Mohegan Sun goes from 6 to midnight. There's some time but
yes,
that's great.
A lot of multiplier days work like that, where it ends at the stroke of midnight, like Cinderella or something here.
Yeah.
But Foxwoods, no, the guy said, no, that goes till 6 a.m., 24 hours we're doing it. So maybe, I don't know if it was just that one, but check, I was pleasantly surprised. And honestly, I've avoided going sometimes on tier credit nights because I'm like, what am I going to do? I get there, I check in, then at midnight, it stops. It's like I'd rather go in the morning and not even get the hotel room and worry about it. But now, if it's on a Friday, you could get there Friday night after work, 6 p.m., and you got 12 hours till sunrise to keep playing and accumulating tier credits.
That's good news. That is really good news.
So very positive news there. So finally, Robin, it was needless to say, I'm asking about what happens when the clock strikes midnight. It was after midnight, and I was down the end of my bankroll. And at this point, the table went up to $50. So I was really like, I kind of got a push here I'm rooting for pushes. When I was getting pushes, I was clapping. They were cracking up in the pit down there because I was like, another push, thank God. So finally, Robin, and this is, I don't suggest people do this. I had to go to the bathroom a lot on my last hour of play there to try and get these tier credits.
Yeah.
I don't know if the coffee caught up with me, wink, wink, yada, yada, but I spent a lot of time going back and forth to that bathroom on my last hour because I was figuring, I did the math on what they rated me while I was playing before, so I said, you know what, if I do one more full hour and they rate me what I was being played, I should get it, right? Sure enough, Robin, I clued the dealer into it too. I was like, I'm just trying to get like another however many tier credits. I just, I need to, I hope I want to get it before I lose all this, my whatever $100 I had left, right? And Robin, I don't know if the dealer worked her magic, but when I left and she was like, you should be good because you were here. I was playing. It wasn't like I was not playing. I didn't spend the whole time in the bathroom, unfortunately. That would have been more economically prudent of me. But I left, and I made the new tier by 7 tier credits, Robin. And with a multiplier of 4 times, that means I only made it by like a half a tier, barely a tier credit I made it by.
That's terrific. Hey, you persevered, man, and you got it. That's great.
Right? Nothing says a gambler's happiness by losing hundreds of dollars so I can go get a free coffee next time I go there.
That's right. Yes, that's
right. Eggs and bacon on me, Robin. We'll go to the lounge.
Yep. I remember Eric Rosenthal talking about what's your casino currency. And, for us, it's that free drink and free meal.
Oh, yeah. And a place to rest my head at night, and you got me.
Yep.
All right, Robin. Well, I'm running a little long here, so I'm going to cut this trip report short. We had some good Pi Gow fun. It turns out the tier credit's 24 hours long, and I'm excited about Boston Harbor thanks to you.
Oh, yeah. I hope you get up there soon. I really do. It's a great place.
And I don't know what it is, Robin. I don't know if it's the COVID restrictions being lifted. I don't know if it's picturing that beautiful Encore Boston Harbor room. I don't know if it's my little baby boy in the hotel room playing on the safe. But I got a funny feeling that between me, you, Win Boston Harbor, Foxwoods, Mohegan Sun, the Vegas fanboy who just had a baby himself, congratulations to him. I have a funny feeling that together we're gonna make luck happen.